G'day, everyone. I hope you're having a great weekend. We know it's a great week that we've got coming up. It's round one of the National Rugby League. It's 2022, and we just cannot wait for games to start. We're going to go through every game. We might go through some long-term futures bets as well. We've got it back on track for this year after what's been a great off-season as well. If you want to download this podcast, please do. Make sure you subscribe. You can get us on Spotify. You can get us on Apple, Whooshka. If you want to watch us, heavens knows why you'd want to do that, but each to their own. You can do it via YouTube as well. And make sure you subscribe so you keep getting it delivered straight to your inbox. The usual suspects are in attendance. When I talk about that, I'm talking about the number one seed up there at TopSport HQ, Tristan Merlehan, and of course, Gerard Condon reading the play. Very, very excited. I think the direct quote from him today was he was bouncing off the walls, getting ready for round one. How are we, gentlemen?
I don't want to steal a quote, but I'm just as excited as Gerard. This is it's like Christmas Eve now. We've got games tomorrow night. We've been talking about it for so long. And I think from our end at TopSport's end, we've put so much time and effort into getting a stack of individual markets up for this season, and it's just built that excitement for a lot longer. And now it's you almost feel like you're like what the players do. They're ready to run out onto the field. I just can't wait for this first game to kick off and the season be underway. And there's so much talk. There's already things happening in the team list. There's been so many changes already that we're in for a big season, and you cannot wait.
Well, I don't know if there's anything positive about a migraine or a positive migraine or how your head hurts, but my head's been hurting for 4 or 5 days doing spreadsheets and numbers and ratings and prep and God knows what, but I've loved every minute of it, and it's great that the footy's here. And, the markets, Tristan, talk about that. I've track the markets every week. The changes in the last 5 days to the 8 games is staggering. Every one of the 8 games there's been a crunch one way or another, and we've actually had 4 of those 8 games where the favourite has flipped. So we've got a lot to get through, and there's a lot of interest out there.
No doubt about it. Just for those people who aren't watching via YouTube at the moment, Gerard and I in our non-issue RM Williams polo shirt. Tristan still got his club issue TopSport polo. I'm sure it must be any point now, you would think, Gerard. But anyway.
Well, on that note, Jimmy, we've got and I'll be very, very proud of me, like giving out a test cap. We've got a couple of new bits of apparel that I might have to do some sort of presentation, whether it be live on a show or we do it face to face. I don't know, but they're on their way, and looking forward to deliver that. But
Tristan, is the deal that you've actually got to get to a positive score on the lunch bet scoreboard before they're handed out?
Well, that might be the catalyst, Gerard. We make the delivery on the first paying of the lunch bet. We're only 14 months overdue, so we can bring that out at any occasion.
All right, you want to play it like that? That's fine. Let's go back before going forward. That's right, 3rd winner in a row. Thanks very much. From a racing perspective, Marzu, just the $3.40 this week. A winner there for you, Gerard. I think it paid $1.20, was it? No, sorry, it was $2.70 into $1.80. But what it does mean is that we've raised a whole heap of money for Pass It On clothing as well. We've got a tally there, Tristan.
We do. $3,268. So that's a really nice tally we've been building up. Overpass, absolutely smashed. It was very, very well back. One of the best back horses I've seen for a while. Marzu as well. Very impressive effort. And we got the best, got $4.60 about it. So great tipping, boys. We really got our eye in. And let's not forget that this time last year, we were just starting this show. This was the first episode in 2021, and our charity balance was sitting at 0. We're already 3,268 in the kick, and we haven't even kicked off yet. So looking forward to a big year of raising some big funds.
And I think if anybody's listening, Tristan, over that 12 months now to this day, that's about 13,000 that we've raised so far for Passing On clothing. And I should add that, unlike some of us in this room, I did give a roll goal guarantee last week about Overpass winning, and that I'd be kicking money in anyway. And it duly got smashed and saluted.
There's something here in my run sheet about a table around lunch bets. Obviously, I'm going to skip past that very quickly, and we'll go into the teeth of the podcast. Before we go game by game, round one of the National Rugby League, let's have a look at some long-term stuff. The futures markets and some of the other markets that TopSport has put up is best in the business, no doubt about it. The handicap market is a winner. I know Gerard and I were talking today, and we may or may not have acted upon those discussions, but there's been a little bit of change. And look, there's heaps of markets, but the handicap market is the one that we love playing in.
Well, can I just touch on that too? In all fairness to Tristan, he said this for the last 12 months, if not for many years. TopSport are also prepared to take a bet. I mean, there's a couple of particular markets that I've bet into in the last couple of weeks where I've either had to bet across numerous places, including TopSport, or one particular market that ended up being closed down and then has actually been turned off for the next 8 months of the season, which is just staggering. Looking ahead, and yes, there have been lots of moves around the market. We mentioned a few last week. The two that I thought, looking at the longer term markets where the numbers were different to mine, were the Dragons. I had them making the top 8. They're not roll gold good things, but I just thought the price was wrong. I thought they were a 50% chance. The market had them about 25%. So you can still get $3.20 around the Dragons to do that. The other was, I had the Warriors much closer to being in the bottom 2, and I thought $10 looked very generous for them to possibly run last. Again, I'm betting around the percentage, not necessarily whether they're actually dead set good things to do so. Now, in the last week since our last podcast, guys, crunching numbers, looking ahead at the rest of the season, I just think I've said over the last couple of weeks I thought that the Storm were the team to beat. If I then look at the whole season and the draw, crunch through a whole range of different things, the Storm are somewhere around $4.40 for the minor premiership. On my numbers, I think that looks very generous. And if we then factor into the last 24 hours that Nathan Cleary is out for the next couple of weeks, what does that do to Penrith? My mail out of Penrith is that maybe the rehab hasn't gone as well on his shoulder. Maybe he might have more issues over the rest of the season and be a little bit in and out. Now, if all of a sudden that is the case, then that certainly brings the Storm in a little further again. So I thought that the $4.40 longer term for them to win the minor premiership and or be in the grand final were other angles that I might look at.
Yeah, well, you look at that, Gerard, and I think, who knows how injuries are going to play out? Who knows how COVID's going to play out over the course of this year? But you look at Penrith's side and Cleary's out and they're now the underdog against Manly. And granted, Manly is a strong threat. If Tommy Trbojevic pulls out or DCE pulls out of any game Manly play, they're going to probably be close to underdogs depending on who they're playing. Let's not forget that Melbourne are missing Cam Munster in this game, and they're still $1.25 favourite. They've got so much depth. There was a lot of talk about the Panthers' injuries at the back end of last year and all that, but Melbourne were missing players throughout the duration of the year. They were the best side all year, so it's hard to see them regressing that far. I think it's a very, very good bet, and as you say, that handicap market has been so popular with us, and I think you find when you try something unique, people follow, and it's great to see. We actually we support a little Facebook page. It's more than a little Facebook page with a few members on there, and I actually asked them if they wanted to price up some season multis to their group, and we did that last year, and there was about 20 or 30 requests put forward. I did it again for this year, and I rolled in on Saturday morning to have a look at the page to see how many I had to do, and there was about 130 requests. I've gone through and priced them all up, and some of those they're all on the website under the NRL season multi. So jump on there and have a look. They're open until the season kicks off tomorrow. But one that Gerard might like, just looking on the back of that, Dragons to finish in front of the Broncos at the end of the regular season. That's $2.25. There's literally hundreds of markets here, all unique offering. Dragons to make the 8, South to miss the 8, one of our specials combination. That's $10 in there. So a stack of markets there, but we've done our best to price up as many as we can over the course of the preseason.
Absolutely outstanding. I'll say more about that very good point that you made about the Melbourne Storm there, Tristan, when we do have a look at that game via the Tigers. All right, lads, let's get into it. Amazing first game. We've got the defending champions out at home, haven't played there for so long, have an incredible record, have won the last 17 straight at Penrith. No Cleary. And that's obviously why we've seen the market change, and we'll get an understanding of that market change over the last 7 to 10 days, Tristan. The Seagulls into $1.82. Really interesting. Hamole Alakawatu, so good for them last year. He's been named in the start side, and Kula, the sprint sensation, is on the bench in jersey number 14. This is a great start to the season, Tristan.
It's a great start to the season, and it's one that you look at this game on paper and you out of all the matches, you couldn't ask for a better start. So the NRL's done it really well. They're going to kick off the season in a great spot because let's not forget the AFL kicks off the week later and you've got a grand final rematch to start the season off there. So it's important to start this season in good light, and they've done everything they can. Penrith at $2, Manly's $1.82. The line's 1.5. Now Penrith opened this at 5.5. It was 4 flat yesterday on Wednesday. On Tuesday, prior to the news about Nathan Cleary coming out. Now, it's an interesting one here because I don't think any of us ever absolutely 100% thought Nathan was going to play. I think there was always an element of doubt that he may not have got up for round one. And it's amazing that there's been a 5.5 point move on the back of that. So that either indicates that maybe the market was overpriced to begin with, but Manly has certainly been very, very heavily backed. And I don't think it's just on the back of Cleary. You look through the team list and there's so many of these guys that were so instrumental in Penrith's chances last year that are no longer at the club. Capewell, Naden to a lesser extent, Momorowski, and obviously Cleary. So it's going to test their depth in a game first up where I know Tommy T is going to be ready to go. But 1.5, total points 40.5. It's been smashed towards the unders. It was 42.5 at open, dropped down 2 points to 40.5.
And the key thing here is when we look at numbers, what's Cleary worth if you take him out? I'm not going to put a number to it because I don't want to give away that IP, but certainly my out wasn't as big as what the market moved. But as you touched on today on radio, Jimmy, that when he plays, Panthers average 31 points a game. When he's out, they average 17 points a game. And it was very obvious last year in the 3, I think, or so games that he was out, their attack just fell away completely. Their ability to score and mount points. I think that O'Sullivan is a better replacement than Tyron May. But again, it's a big ask. You then take Burton, Capewell, Momorowski out. It starts to break up some of those combinations. I think that the Panthers treated their trials as trials, so we're just trying to build some match fitness and a little bit of combination. But you've got a number of new people here under a bit of pressure. I thought the Eagles looked up and about in their first trial. They do look very fit. I thought they treated the second half of that trial and their second trial just as games where they're happy to go through the motions and get some match fitness. I think they'll be very wound up for this. They're not normally a big round one team, but I think Hasler sees this as a scalp that he wants. I certainly still had the Panthers just slight favourites, but the plus 4.5 early was my play, and I'm with the Eagles. I think they can win.
Yeah, 0-4, didn't they start the season last year? Got a late win, might have been in extra time, was it, against the Warriors? And all this, of course, last year with no Tommy T. And then he came out and had one of the greatest seasons of all time. He wins the Dally M. He plays 16 games. It's quite phenomenal. He's a couple short of the leading try scorer in those 16 games. It's just amazing. And he is the key there. No Schuster, no Walker. I talked about Cooler, but you couldn't expect him to come on and play as well as Dylan Walker was at the back end of the season last year. I think this is a tight game. I think now with the Panthers at $2, that's where the value lies because exactly that reason. I think Sean O'Sullivan is a much better option than Tyrone May. Finish to sets is going to be so much better. Jerome Luai would be a bigger voice in that team as well. And the home crowd can't be underestimated. We've got sunshine this afternoon, predicted to be sunshine tomorrow. Very good draining ground. The Panthers supporters will get there in numbers. So back to $2. I like the Panthers.
And Jimmy, I should have mentioned that just on that, the Panthers have won their last 17 games at home. That's just an amazing record. And the Seagulls have lost 4 of their last 5 at the ground. So, home ground advantage with them. Whether they're as good with some of those guys out, we'll see.
First game on Friday night is the Raiders hosting the Sharks. This is an interesting one. $2 outside of the Raiders. Brad Schneider in the halves in the absence of the injured Jamal Fogarty. James Schiller, who really impressed that trial game he went to at Leichhardt Oval. I thought he was very sharp in that game. The Sharks, Ikavalu's made his way into the side on the ding-a-ling. Mulatalo goes to the centre position. But the big news for this one, Tristan, the coach will be doing it remotely. He might have to address them via Zoom at halftime. Craig Fitzgibbon, COVID positive. Very fortunate that he has someone with such experience in a head coaching position like Steve Price, to a lesser extent, Josh Hannay that'll be down there. But that's just another element to this game that you need to take in.
It is. And it's, it's been, poor old Fitzy would have been so excited to coach his first NRL game, and your first game is in these circumstances. But he seems like he's very good, got a great head on his shoulders, and I think it's going to be interesting to how it plays out. As you say, he's very fortunate with those veterans that have been around the setup as well. So Canberra are $2. The Sharks are $1.80. So this game has moved a little bit since we opened. It was certainly when we first started the betting, it was with Jamal Fogarty in the side, and Canberra was slight favourites. It was $1.85, $1.95. Now that news has been broken for a number of weeks now, and it has flipped to $1.80 Cronulla, $2 Canberra. Interesting there, no Jared Croker in the side. I think he battled a little bit towards the back end of last year. No Jordan Rapana as well on the back of his indiscretion in the Indigenous game too. So $2 Canberra, $1.80 Cronulla. I'm really expecting Cronulla to have a big year this year, and I think this is their opportunity to set the tone early in the season.
A couple of really interesting angles here. The Raiders back at home, lost 5 of their last 6 here, yet their winning record against the Sharks is good in winning the last 6. But conversely, the Sharks, and it's been a while, their record down in Canberra is very good. So make of that of what you will. The Sharks in their trials just looked very much like the Roosters to me in that second trial 2 weeks ago. Really well drilled, really well prepared. I like having Moylan and Hines in the halves together. Kennedy looks up and about. It's a nice balance in the forward pack. I've got some issues about the Raiders and their centres, and certainly on their edge. I think their right edge in defence is a real question mark. I'm not sure that he starts with what he's named. There's a couple of inexperienced guys there in the centres. Whether he actually goes with that, I'll be surprised. Very surprised also that Savage is well down on the bench. I would have had him in my top 17. I'm with the Sharks. I think they get the job done here. I like the look of where they're headed. It's a nice balance. They look well drilled.
Dale Finucane in the lock forward position. He'll be captaining the side too. So, so many positive. I like Moylan. Apparently Moylan, we know Moylan talent, no doubt about that. He took a massive pay cut and he said, make it a 1-year deal. So he's backed himself this year. Physically, he's holding together through a pre-season, so that's always a good sign. Can't believe Xavier Savage is not playing. Cannot believe that he is not playing in this side. Chance Nickel-Cockstad, put him in the centres. He'd be a good centre for your team. Doesn't pass the ball, although we did pass at Leichhardt Oval when we nearly fell over. But the other thing about how does he play Josh Hodgson? I thought the way that he was playing him last year by the back end of the year when he was hooker and then he was first receiver and then he was playing a different role again. He was doing all sorts of different things with the side, and I liked it. I really thought he was getting the best out of Josh Hodgson. I anticipate that he does something like that again, Ricky Stewart. Unfortunate Fitzgibbon can't be there, but I think the Sharks get their first win, and he gets his first win as an NRL coach.
And that raises a really good question, Jimmy, about how he uses the number 9 and whether he plays any role as a first receiver, especially when he's brought a young rookie in for his first game.
Yeah, Starling is so dangerous coming off the bench, isn't he? Get the 20-25 minute mark, and Starling's running out of there. And I don't mind Hodgson moving to a 7 first receiver, whatever you want to call him, lock forward, plays that role and plays it really well. Schneider and Whiten in the halves. I don't know. We've got to wait and see how that plays out. Massive game on Friday night. They're always big. The Rabbitohs travelling up to Suncorp Stadium to take on the Broncos. Despised outsiders. No Adam Reynolds. No one is more disappointed than Adam Reynolds on that. Billy Walters and Albert Kelly get the contested halves positions. The Rabbitohs are short, $1.29. They've got a young rookie halfback. They've got a rookie fullback in Blake Taft, Lachlan Ilias, the halfback. This is going to be one of the interesting games with the line at 10.5, Tristan.
Yeah, the line shifted significantly on the back of the Adam Reynolds news. It moved from 6.5 out to 10.5. The Rabbitohs were at about $1.45 into $1.29. It's now Rabbitohs $1.29. The Broncos $3.65. The line at that 10.5 mark. Total points is 46.5. So expecting a few points on the scoreboard. So I'm thinking the market maybe has moved a touch too far here. Brisbane first game at home. We know they would have loved to have had Adam Reynolds leading him out. We know that, but I feel like they showed some signs at the back end of last year. I think they've had a pretty good pre-season, and I think the introduction of Kurt Capewell into this side, I think it's going to add a bit of starch to them. And when I mentioned last week, my tip for the season is the Rabbitohs to underachieve. I just feel $1.29 minus 10.5. Again, no Latrell Mitchell as well. So I just think the 10.5 might be a touch too big. I think South probably just get over the line, but may not cover the spread.
I thought the thing that's flown under the radar a little here, I know Reynolds is out and that's taken all the publicity, but they also have another 3 guys who I think would be in their starting side, if not their starting 17. So that's 4 key guys, including Reynolds, out for the Broncos. That brings them back a little bit, especially for a team that, finished down toward the bottom of the table last season. South's clearly without Latrell Mitchell, but a very good record on the road, a very good record against Brisbane. It does look a game that's got some points. I'm a little bit like Tristan. I was about the same position as the market, but would I take Brisbane with the plus? No. Would I take South to give the minus? No. It's a game where I want to just have a look and see how things work in the halves for the Rabbits and see whether the Broncos are aiming up. And Kevy did pipe up a couple of times last year with a very big, boisterous pre-game rev up. I wonder if that's what we see here first up into the new season.
Yeah, I think it's. I watched Jackson Paulo really disappointing in the trials, whether it was left or right or wing or centre, and he's saved his position there in the centres, which is a little bit of a surprise for me. Campbell Graham, we know, has defensively had some issues last year, and if you've got a strength anywhere for this Broncos side, Katoni Staggs and Herbie Farnworth, I thought was one of their better players. I wonder if Cobbo goes to fullback at different stages with Asako and he alternating between the wing. Interesting to see what Kevy does at that one. I couldn't take the Broncos for a win, but I could look long and hard at the 10.5. Roosters v Knights, that's at the SCG on Saturday afternoon. The Roosters, I couldn't believe when I read during the course of this week, Sam Walker, Luke Keary and Victor Radley have never played together. Given how interconnected their games are for the Roosters, this is going to be interesting to watch. Billy Smith wins a spot named in the centres up against a Knights side that has a further blow. Daniel Saifidi, this is big news today, that he's got this fracture coming out of the hip drop tackle. So he's out of the side. Adam Clune gets that position in the absence of Mitchell Pearce. Dane Gagai back at Newcastle as well. But all eyes on the fullback for this one, Kalen Ponga, Tristan.
Kalen Ponga, yeah, and it looks like he's going to have his work cut out for him because the market's opened up very short. The Roosters $1.18, the Knights $5, and the line's 13.5. It opened at 11.5, and it's moved to 13.5, 180 the minus, $2 the plus. I think that's more so. A lot of these big moves have been on the back of significant player outs. And you touched on there, Jimmy, there's a couple of movements over the last little bit, but I think this is more so down to form and expected form line. I think this is a really aggressive push towards the Roosters and potentially coinciding with the money that's been supporting the Knights to underachieve throughout the course of the year. So I think punters are expecting the Roosters, who have been the hype side throughout this off-season, to really put a number on the Knights early doors. Total points 46.5. There has been a little bit of support for the unders into the 185, 195, the overs. I think the Knights, we'll know in the first 10 or 15 minutes how they're going to shape up, and I think it's a really important game early in the season for them.
Well, I'm not big on the Knights this year, and then when I crunch some numbers around this game over the last 24 hours, we take Brayley, Safidi, Hunt, Hodgson, Lee out. I mean, there's a list of key outs that starts to really weaken that best 17. It certainly thins out that bench, and there's 2 very key outs there in Brayley and Safidi. Against the Roosters at the SCG, the Roosters have an outstanding record there. Speaking of outstanding records, they've won 14 in the last 16 times that they've played the Knights. I mean, the record and hold over them is very significant. I didn't think 13.5 was enough. My number's much longer. I haven't had a play in the game. I'll wait and see what the weather does. But if I'm kicked up coming out of and into Saturday afternoon, I think the Roosters minus the line is where I want to be.
I'll encourage you to follow my race bet then, Gerard, if that's been the case. If you saw the score of this game and it was 34-4, would you be surprised?
No.
And that's what you look at. I know Gagai's gone back there, and actually his trial form's been really good, but his form's been good for the last 7 years. Dane Gagai has been a very, very consistent player. And then you start going through the players that are there for the Roosters. You know, Siasiwa Tokiaho, who is, or certainly was, one of the leading middle forwards in the competition. He's just hanging on to the bench. So, you know, that's an understanding of the depths that's at the disposal of Coach Robinson. Crichton, Tupanua and Radley complement each other so nicely in that back row. I'm interested to see Momorowski's name on a wing, Billy Smith in a centre, Joey Manu, I'm presuming, plays right. There was a little bit of talk of him playing left. Smith has played on the right, but, you know, Luke Keary combining with James Tedesco down a left edge. If you haven't got left centre, whoever that happens to be, and Daniel Tupou as an anytime try scorer, then, you know, you're not watching it closely enough. But, yeah, I think the Roosters can cover that line. Warriors and the Dragons is a really interesting one. This one's going to be played up at the Sunshine Coast Stadium. We've got Harris Tavita. Chanel's out the back. Sean Johnson back in a Warriors jersey. So that's always an interesting storyline. The Dragons have had Tyrell Sloan and Junior Amoni named in their correct position. So he had to do that on the back of that really impressive performance in the Charity Shield. This is another one of these tight markets, Tristan, that I think that you're having trouble splitting. Yeah,
well, we opened the betting with the Warriors quite a firm favourites. They were -4 flat. There was about $1.55 the Warriors, $2.40 to $2.50 the Dragons, and the Dragons have been absolutely smashed. They've been backed into $1.84 slight favourites now. The Warriors are $1.97. So it's been a significant move, and that's been, I feel, on the back of the trial form, on the back of liking what the Dragons have done in the preseason, and on the back of a couple of question marks raised over the Warriors side. So Dragons are favourites, 45.5, expecting plenty of points here up at the Sunshine Coast. I feel the Dragons are going to be very, very hard to beat in this game.
I'm surprised the market's still as close as it is. I have it much longer and much wider here. And I mean, Walsh, Lodge and Harris out for the Warriors. I mean, they would be in their top 4 players and starting, and they're out. I mean, I think that punches a big hole in that team and the combinations and leadership and experience. And, you know, Walsh gives them so much from the back with attack. The Dragons on the road, it's at the Sunshine Coast. You know, the Warriors are going to be nomads again, third season in a row where they're no true home ground advantage. They'll be playing Sunshine Coast or Redcliffe Stadium for most of their home games and then away. I just thought that the Dragons get an opportunity here. I did like what they did through the trials, and just think those 3 key outs for the Warriors, my gap was bigger than where it is at the moment.
It's interesting, isn't it? You're talking about the key outs, and the Dragons have left out some really interesting. You know, I thought Burgess played well in the trials. I thought Tarek Sims is, you know, surely a starter there, but he can't get it into the 17 or either of those guys. The spine is really interesting for the Dragons, isn't it? We've got literally the old and the new. We've got McCulloch and Hunt, who started nearly 15 years ago at the Broncos in that under-20 side. And then we've got these Amoni and Sloan. And the funny thing about it, you know, it worked in that Charity Shield game. It really did work. And if you look at the games that they've got, they actually complement each other really nicely. Amoni's got a really nice running game himself, sharp step. And Sloan is just, he is majestic when he runs across the turf. So, you know, that right there. And again, you've got to stay healthy and all that sort of thing. But it's promising for Dragons fans.
Well, and we saw it at the end of last year's season. Jimmy, both of those 2 kids have got a touch of brilliance about them, and they can do something with the football that this team needs. In particular, Sloan. I just think the kid's a superstar. I think he's a difference about where they finish on the table. So let's keep him healthy and safe and in for a big year.
Interesting game on Saturday night. This is at Combank Stadium, and it's the Tigers taking on the Storm. We know about, Gerard will probably tell us about that incredible record that Craig Bellamy has with the Storm. All eyes on Jackson Hastings, who makes his return to the National Rugby League. His trial game against the Roosters was quite exceptional. So much time on his hands for the former man of steel. But back to that point that you made, Tristan, about the Melbourne Storm, and that is this, that they are playing their first game of the season away from home, admittedly against the Tigers, but without Munster, without Harry Grant, and now late today we learn without Jesse Bromwich, and they're still 12.5-point favourites. They're quite an incredible organisation.
A phenomenal organisation, and the market's reflecting that. The market's got the Storm at $1.25, the Tigers at $4. The line opened at 9.5, and it's already gone out to 12.5. So very much support for the Storm at the minus and to win this game comfortably. 46.5 the total points. So we are expecting plenty of points in this game as well. But it's just such a Bellamy type side. Like, it's next man up. There's Nick Meaney. I'm so excited to see what he does in a Storm jersey. I know all the talk's been Xavier Coates, and rightly so. He's going to perform very, very well on the edge of that back line. But Nick Meaney showed a lot of potential at the Bulldogs. I think he's going to go to another level. I think he's going to have a massive year for the Storm. It's going to be interesting where he plays once Munster does come back into the side, and it's going to create a very welcome headache for Bellamy, I suggest. But yeah, the Storm will be very, very hard to beat, and certainly the line's very much in play.
Well, the Storm have got 7 out. Now, 5 of those would probably press to be in the starting 17. Yet they still look a damn healthy team on paper. I know that the Tigers have got 5 or 6 out as well, but to still be at the minus position that they are as an away team, it's at Parramatta Stadium, but I mean, it just shows you the gulf between the top of the table and where the markets think that the Tigers might be, especially with the Tigers not having as much depth and having a couple of those key guys out. It just makes a big change here. And I thought the market was about right. That was about the gap I ended up with. I mean, the West Tigers at Parramatta Stadium, are they pumped up? Can they perform first up? But let's go back to that Storm record. They have not lost a round one game under Craig Bellamy. That's 17 years. I'll give you the tip for free that it will be 18.
I don't like what the Tigers have done in their back row. Joe Offengawi doesn't pass the ball. Alex Twal didn't pass the ball, so now they've got him playing in the front row. Stefano's a runner. Luciano's been really great in the trial games, but I know Tyrone Peachey threw a few passes, and it might have been 4 of them that missed the mark in that trial against the Roosters, but he offers something different. You're not going to bash and barge your way through the Melbourne Storm. Have a look at who's coming off the bench whenever Coach Bellamy wants him. Nelson Asafa Solomona, who literally was carrying people upfield last time I saw him in a trial game. It's incredible. Nick Meaney at 5'8". Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, not sure Craig Bellamy's got that exactly right. But if you're going to put a guy at 5'8", look who you've got around him. Pappenhausen talking to him out the back. Jerome Hughes running things on the right-hand side. Oh, and you got one of the best runners and hookers full stop in the game, throwing the ball to you from dummy half. He's got some security around him, and for that first game, I think, yeah, righto, let's go with. I'll have a anytime try scorer bet coming up for that Melbourne Storm West Tigers game.
Well, you might be able to take your pick, Jimmy, but I tell you, I think Jade Nikorima probably starts at 6, and he's going to be a really interesting watch. I mean, clearly the kid's coming back from a couple of issues. The Storm is the right place for him to be. He looked really good in that second trial.
I read an article about him. He said a couple of years ago he actually chose to go to the Roosters over the Storm when he was offered because he didn't want to do a Storm preseason, which if you don't want to do a Storm preseason, the Storm don't want you at their preseason. But now he's ready. And so you're right. It's going to be an interesting one. Sunday, CommBank Stadium. This is a beauty. Eels up against the Titans. How about this? Nathan Brown, Mitch Rain, and Bryce Cartwright can't make the 17 for the Parramatta Eels. So they're pretty much favoured against I shouldn't say this, the TopSport Titans, but Isaac Liu into the front row. And I'm looking at the spine for both sides and I'm thinking, Tristan?
Well, that's exactly what the market's taken that same look at it. And the market has certainly moved. It opened at a flat 4, about $1.55, $1.60 the Eels, and it's gone all the way into $1.39. The Titans out to $3, and the line shifted to 8.5. 185 the plus, 195 the minus. So we have got to the 8.5 mark, and punters have found a little bit of support for the Titans. So I look at that on paper, and I certainly take every point you say, Jimmy. The only thing that I query is the lack of missing of Fergo and Sevo and how they're going to return the balls off kicks. I think that's going to be an area where they battle. I think we might have discussed that last week. But I just think the Titans are getting out to a price now where maybe the market shifted a little bit too far, and I don't mind the Titans at the plus there.
I can see a lunch bet coming up here. I don't think the market's gone far enough. I certainly think it's 10 at least. I saw the moves today, and I guess the big key question for me about the Titans, as we've touched on over recent weeks, is how that 9, 7 and 6 bed themselves down. The one clearly has ability. Going on a travel is a trick for them. Their away form has been poor over the last couple of years. This is a tough stadium to start at. Remembering that the Eels also have a double header here, they'll have a full house. It'll be very vocal. It'll be very tough. The one thing about the Eels is that they are fast starters. They're normally very good in the opening rounds each week of each opening season, especially under Brad Arthur. They look very good in their second trial. I just thought that they looked the clear difference here, and I was all over the Eels. I thought that 8.5 was still probably short of where I think the game ends up by game time.
Got great respect for Alexander Brimson. He's playing in that 6th position, though, and don't know about that. Fafita and Fasua Malaawi, we know they are standout players, but not in key positions. And then you've got Toby Sexton, unknown, Aaron Clark, unsure, and Jaden Campbell, still very young. So that's my concern. And just on bringing that ball back, I had the opportunity to see Bailey Simonson in person. Oh, God, what an athlete that young bloke is. So he might be a really interesting pickup for the Parramatta Eels this year and over the next couple. But, yeah, I didn't mind them at the -7.5 too. So I can see this TopSport sponsorship of the Titans costing Tristan a little bit more than anticipated. So this will be very interesting.
Yes, well, I'm wondering if we reverse reverse things 12 months, I wouldn't have been so bullish about the Titans, but we're in now, and I think we might have to go a little lunch bet when the time comes.
That's what happens.
I think the other watch here for the Titans too is that they missed their second trial. So there's a slight touch of that match fitness, in particular around a couple of guys not getting game time, and I think Brimson's been one of those. So, whether they got those combinations right, you can do as many ball work sessions as you like, but getting it out on the park in a tough away venue, it's going to be a nice test for them on the weekend.
Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it, Tristan? You had a chat. Oh, you had a chat to Justin Holbrook. He's very confident. Yeah, no, I'm a bit more bullish about it. Gets into all sorts of trouble.
He could be right.
All right, let's have a look at the final game of the round. This is on Sunday night. It's up at Queensland Country Bank Stadium. It is the Cowboys taking on the Bulldogs. This is another tight one to split, but they're there, aren't they? Chad Townsend, Petahiku, Jermaine Tanoa, Brown, all the new guys there for the Cowboys. Give me a moment here while I just run through the list of players making their club debut for the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs. It would include Matt Duffy, Josh Adokar, Brent Naden, Matt Burton, Paul Vaughan, Tavita Pangai Jr., Max King, and Braden Burns. So it's a brand new Bulldogs. Do we see something new, Tristan?
Well, just before we get on to the prices, I've got here the match kicks off at 6:15. Is that Queensland or New South Wales time, Jimmy?
Mate, who would know? Anastasia, I make this plea to you. Please daylight saving.
I will confirm it is New South Wales time, 6:15 kickoff, and the Cowboys are slight favourites. It's $1.85 the Cowboys, $1.95 the Bulldogs. It's been a spirited betting affair. I think a lot of people have got an opinion one way or the other about both of these sides. The Bulldogs, we know, struggled immensely throughout the duration of last year, but they've signed so well, and everyone is expecting them to improve. Cowboys, I think a lot of people went into the season expecting them to really battle, but they showed some signs in the preseason where maybe there's a little bit about them. We know how they grow a leg at Townsville, so it makes for a really intriguing matchup. The thing that I'm really interested in is that I noticed last year, whenever Luke Thompson played for the Bulldogs, they were a much, much more competitive side. I'm really intrigued to see how he goes with a bit more cattle around it this year. And I think that all the talk and all the focus is on these new players, but I think Luke Thompson could have a really, really sizable year. And I think if he can do that, it'll take him a long way. But yeah, tight game. I don't know how to split them, and we're just going to have to see how things go. 46.5 for total points. Another interesting one there with all these new combinations.
I always had the Cowboys a favourite in this, even going back a week or so ago. I just think there are issues around the Bulldogs yet to be resolved. I mean, their travel record is very poor, especially at Townsville. Lost 4 of their last 5 visits up there. The Cowboys, I know they've been down around the bottom of the table, but, their winning form when they have won, they've bounced up best at home. I think they'll be primed to start well this season. Again, looking at the Bulldogs and their trials, I really worry about what's going to happen at 7, what's going to happen at number 9, some of the defensive issues in both those positions, and then on an edge, a couple of the selections on their edges just really surprised me. And I go to the Cowboys. I just like the balance and the look of this side. I like having Hammer back at fullback. I think they've finally got a settled centre combination of Holmes on the left and Hiku on the right. I'm not sure that Dearden starts. I'd be surprised if Drinkwater doesn't maybe make his way in. They look fit, healthy, ready to go. I think they're prime first up. I thought the Cowboys were one of the better value bets of the weekend.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate thing with 8 guys making their club debut. I still didn't see anything from a trial game that was going to give you any confidence around that, defensively especially, which hints at attitude, which is a concern. Look, the fascinating thing for me coming out of this game is, and you referenced it last week when we were chatting, Gerard, around Jason Taumalolo and his engagement with the side. And I don't mean when you put him on and when you take him off. How engaged is Jason Taumalolo in this season? He's had all the off-season talking about vaccination and non-vaccination. But on his best day is probably probably the best middle forward in the world. And so they need to work out, how do we get our 250 plus metres and damaging runs and maybe even a pass in the game of Jason Taumalolo? And if that's the case, the whole thing changes for the Cowboys, because you do have players there, in particular Hamiso, that can take advantage of what he creates.
100% right, Jimmy. And, I've touched on it previously that Peyton did a long radio interview last week with a Queensland radio station and spoke for about 12 minutes in a lot of depth about where he thought things had come in the last 12 months. He touched on Jason and he openly put his hand up and said that he had apologised to Jason, that he thought he handled himself poorly last year. Peyton handled himself poorly. He spoke in a press conference way too openly after that loss at Penrith Park, that they've had a lot of talk and work done together about how they approach this season, and he feels that it's very much on the right page and that they're working together. The other big plus that he talked up was the value that Townsend has added to this side. And he openly said, whatever we paid, it wasn't enough. I'd near pay more tomorrow if I had to sign him, because of the experience and direction and leadership that he's actually brought to us, both on and off the park. So very interesting watch. Yes, I do like the Cows here. The really good thing to come out of the week, though, Jimmy, was at least we know that the Bulldogs have found the drones and they've got them at training.
As Phil Gould pointed out at length across social media. I'm with you. I like the Cowboys up there in Townsville as well. All right, gentlemen, we might get your tips first here, Gerard, for the 8 games, and then we'll go into the all-important betting options.
Jimmy, I did like the Eagles, the Sharks, the Rabbits, the Roosters, the Dragons, the Storm, the Eels, the Cowboys, and I think I might have a little all-up on all of those 8 just to win. That might be a nice way to start the season. I thought the best of the weekend, as I touched on, was the Dragons. $1.84 now. Could have got $2.20 about a week ago. I did think the Eagles with the plus start, which was earlier available, was also a nice way into the weekend. And if there happened to be a lunch bet around the Titans and the Eels, I'd be happy to take the market wherever that position is at the moment as well.
Yeah, well, I'm not gonna back down from a lunch bet this early in the season, so I'll certainly take you on. We got the line position at 8.5, so I noticed Jimmy, when he was giving his rundown, he was very happy to be on the 7.5, so he's up to his old tricks nice and early in the season. But I think we'll set the line at 8.5, like it is officially on the TopSport website as we speak. And I'll be doubly supporting the boys on the weekend. But yeah, I can't disagree with virtually every other game. I think we've been, which is very rare for us, we've been in consensus on the bulk of these games, which is good to see. And there's a couple of tight games in terms of the betting, in terms of the Sharks game and the Dragons game, and we all sit on the same side of that. So we'll go down that route. Jimmy, I assume you'll be in on the lunch bet as well, and I'm looking forward to hearing who your try scorer is that you teased the audience with earlier.
That best fluctuation that I can't access must be in the same price as the T-shirt, the polo shirt that I'm trying to access as well. Anyway, my bet for the week is this: the Roosters into the Storm, into the Eels, a three-legged all up, paying $2.05. So I see them as winners over the course of this first week. My anytime try scorer all up in the Tigers v Storm game is Xavier Coates at $1.67 into anytime Ryan Pappenhausen at $1.82. That'll get you $3.03 for that one. So they're my two bets. Am I going to get involved with the Eels and the Titans? I favour very heavily the Eels at the line, no matter what you call it, to be honest, Tristan. So I'm in with Gerard. I'm going to go the RM Williams boys sticking together.
Well, I'll dive in next week with my anytime try scorers. I stayed out this week. I thought I'd just have a good look at the form, but all over the Dragons. If they can win this weekend, I'll be very happy.
All right, gents, let's get into some racing. We've a little bit of a purple patch for us over the last few weeks for tipping. But, Gerard, what have you got for us this weekend?
Yeah, there's some nice racing, isn't there? Especially down at Melbourne again. We've got some cracking races. I thought race 5, number 4, Argentina, $3.20 fixed. Gee, it looks like a very, very good mare for the Freedman stable, Anthony Freedman. Won with ease first up, just absolutely dropped on them. And then at Caulfield, absolute moral beat over 1,400. Never got out off the rail till late. Should have won. Steps to 1,600. Back at set weights, I thought the price was missing at least 30%. $3.20, Flemington, race 5, number 4. Looked a good thing to my.
What about you? Are you playing today, Tristan? Are you in this weekend?
No, I've just got my my bat and ball and put it all in the Titans basket. But no, I think it's I'm so excited about the races that are on this weekend. Like, we're really warming into this autumn carnival. And you got the big Melbourne racing. Obviously, Sydney kicks off shortly. But just looking at that Australian Cup, look, I'm looking at the field here, and it's such a good race. Think it over's been $3.10 into $2.90. Now Cascadian 10 into $9.50. Delphi got beaten on its merits against that horse last start, and it's at $20. It's been 18 out to 20, but it was a huge go in betting. And I love a horse which is all the professionals are all over. And now it's dropped. It's gone to drawn barrier 1. It's doubled in price basically. And I just think, second up, maybe it gets a little bit of fitness on its side. I'd be having a little play on Delphi. That's race 7, number 9 at $20. Just something, one of Jimmy's 2x15 specials, the place or whatever he normally throws in there. But I think it's going to run a big race and what looks a really, really high quality affair.
I must say, Tristan, you did suggest last week that you were keen to try and get Zaki beat, which you did, but you also suggested the horse that you thought had already been found in the market and you thought would run and had something to run for, and that was Inspirational Girl, and she won at a nice price, I think somewhere around $3.40. And the other suggestion that you did tip the listeners into was to be watching your markets about the 20-minute mark before a race in these prime races when the markets start to actually change. And I was watching that, and Inspirational Girl was certainly well supported. And what about the sprint race? The Newmarket Group 1, 1,200 down the straight. We've got Home Affairs drawn a little wide at barrier 16, equal favourite with Lost and Running. That just looks a cracking matchup, doesn't it?
Looks an absolute high quality affair, and you look through that field and you're just excited to see them go around. You got Master Crusader obviously second up at $15. There's horses there. This is one of the best race meetings on the back of the year in the autumn. It's just high quality. You've got good racing in Sydney, really good racing in Sydney as well. And yeah, we've got footy on Thursday, we've got footy on Friday, we've got high quality racing on Saturday. Sport's back.
Can I just clarify what's going on here? So I tip a winner last week and I get roused on for not declaring it. Tristan mentions a couple of horses in passing and he's got commendations for it. You can tell who the boss is around here. Let me be clear about that too. So I'm going for my 4th straight winner, just to be clear. Okay, 4th straight. Rosehill, race 2, number 2, the Magic Night Stakes for the 2-year-olds. She's Extreme. 2-year-old filly needs to win to qualify, back up for the slipper. Full of merit, $2.90. Might be a knockout chance in the slipper when it wins on Saturday too. So there you go. But people scurrying to write that down, $2.90. Race 2, number 2 at Rosehill.
I must say, you've been in great form, but I know we spoke a while back, about how Anthony Don might be the next Hollywood actor on the effort he did for the TopSport video on the Titans launch. The way Gerard was able to recite what I sent to him word for word without looking at his phone was absolutely, I'm gobsmacked. It was brilliantly done, and we do know who's the boss here, and he performed it admirably.
Well, I'm about to step in here, Jimmy. If you wanted to have a little lunch bet around whether She's Extreme does or doesn't win, I'm happy to take you on because I don't think you can get 4 in a row.
Well, hang on. So what's the opposite of $2.90? $2.90 to field. So, I'm not that bright, but I'm.
Well, you were just pumping your tyres up about, you're about to roll out number 4.
Well, all I can say is this, Gerard. My father-in-law says if you're sitting in a room and you're trying to work out who the knock is and you can't find them, you're the knock. All right. So, listen, mate, I'll just tip the winners. All right. It's up to everyone else whether they want to back them.
Can you just keep that phone working all weekend because I'll be ringing rickshaws on Sunday to book us in for a couple of weeks' time.
There it is.
I'll have the TopSport polo shirts ready for that first lunch encounter, so they'll be all ready to go. I'll have the maitre d' turn up in one as well, just to really solidify things. So, been a great weekend, guys. Looking forward to it.
It's a little bit Latrell Mitchell, Jacob Host, isn't it here? A little bit of argy-bargy between the TopSport team. Fair enough. Footy is back. Great racing as well this weekend. Enjoy it, fellas, and we'll look forward to doing it again.
Take care, guys.
Thanks, guys.